So as I discussed, I loved the Double Fine Adventure documentary, and I loved Broken Age. I don't know if I did a video on Act 1, but Act 1 just, like, totally blew my mind. I mean, the art style was amazing. Like, I just was instantly in love with the art style, and you know, the execution, everything was super well done. And you know, I kept looking at it and like, man, you know, if we had more you know, time and money, I'd really like you know, Neverending Nightmares to look like this, or to feel like this, or do some of the things they did. But you know, just the art and all the different worlds and exploring them and interacting with the characters and everything felt like a total dream. And so, you know, I was super excited to play Act 2. And Act 2 I certainly loved. And it's weird, I think, to look at the game like Act 1 versus Act 2, because I think, you know, and the development team said, you know, it was meant to be played as one act, one cohesive game, whereas, you know, if you're playing one cohesive game, you can talk about the first half versus the second half, but it doesn't sort of, you know, they're not as separated in your mind. Whereas, you know, in my experience playing, you know, there was Act 1 and I played it and it was like, whoa! And then, you know, as I waited patiently for Act 2, you know, I was expecting to have my mind, like, double blown. Like, you know, it just would I was thinking it would just get, you know, bigger and better in scope, and, you know, that's why it was taking, you know, even longer, is because they were doing all this other stuff, when, you know, that wasn't actually what the game was supposed to deliver. And you know, even if you watch the Double Fine Adventure documentary, which I already recorded a bunch of plugs for, you know, the thing about it is that, you know, the original design was that, you know, basically these are the locations, and then you switch, and then you get a different perspective with the characters. But, like, for me, you know, I was expecting, you know, that you'd get to explore Loruna, and there'd be all these new characters and locations, and different things would happen. So to some extent, like, you know, my expectations didn't quite line up with what the game was meant to be. And I think, you know, that was sort of exacerbated by the fact that I had to wait for the second part, and you know, my imagination ran wild. The other thing, and this is a very interesting aspect, is if you look at the Double Fine Adventure documentaries, you know, you know, they felt like puzzles. The puzzles in Act 1 were too easy, so they were going to make them harder for Act 2. And there's a very interesting part where, in the documentary, where I'm drawing a blank. I think is it Greg? Oh, I'm the producer. Yeah, Greg Rice, you know, says, oh, I just got back from Steam Dev Days, and everyone said they liked the easy puzzles. And I actually talked to Greg Rice about Broken Age at Steam Dev Days. I mostly asked him about the release date. I can't remember if I told him not to make the puzzles too hard, but I probably did. It seems like, maybe I did. It seems like something I would say. So I feel like I almost participated in that documentary, and if I didn't actually say that, if I only thought that, well, I'm going to take credit for it anyway. But like, if you look at, you know, the part of it, I think, is, you know, they did a Kickstarter, and backers have different expectations. And so if you have, you know, an old school adventure game player, you know, I always played through with the hint guide, or, you know, and I just enjoyed the stories and the characters and the world, and you know, I'm a big Telltale game fan, and I think that they're capturing that aspect of the adventure games, the parts that I really liked, without some of the convoluted puzzles, and you know, but I'm sure there are people who really like to be stumped and really like difficult puzzles, And Broken Age Act 2, sort of moves away from the character and amazing, worlds and just a sort of sense of exploration and wonder, and starts digging down on, resolving conflicts through the actions the players do, which often, sort of culminate in these really tricky puzzles. And I mean, they're perhaps not tricky to everyone, but to me, they're really tricky puzzles, and they do a lot of different things. Some things, like if you had played through Act 1, like you would remember what certain things do, and I'm gonna have spoilers, so if you haven't played Broken Age, go play it, it's awesome. But like the grab and Gary button, like, and there's a bunch of stuff you have to figure out with that, but I didn't really remember grab and Gary. And, there's a couple other things that really sort of tie back to, things you did in Act 1 and how you can do them in Act 2. So I actually ended up using a walkthrough for a number of the puzzles, which I guess is not the end of the world, but there were definitely some tricky puzzles, things that I wouldn't have figured out really on my own. And some of the puzzles, like, at least for me, from a puzzle design perspective, like, the things that sort of weren't, the things that I felt like weren't the best were things where it basically had timing dependencies. So you had to do things in a certain time, otherwise things would reset. And so then you had to reset them, and then you had to basically try again. And so I was playing it, when it was released to backers, and so there wasn't a ton of walkthroughs or material available. And so, like, for one particular puzzle, basically the Hexabot I guess Shay's side of things, Hexapal, sorry. You have to, the really tricky thing, which I found out through a walkthrough, was that basically you had to figure out these symbols from where Vela was, were really the secret code for this Hexapal in Shay's place. Now, Shay could not have really known that. I mean, I guess maybe... No, probably not. But I think the idea is that, they were trying to say that there's almost like a spiritual connection between the characters of Shay and Vela, which, I mean, is interesting, but from a puzzle-solving perspective, that's sort of a challenging cognitive leap to make. I didn't have to make that, because I looked that up. But even having looked that up, I found, really tough. I found the puzzles really tough. Like, there's this pedestal thing, and you're supposed to put your Hexapal in that, and then it explains the secret codes. Because basically the wiring changes based on the run or the person. So it's not like I could just look up the solutions and call it good. I actually had to, decode them myself. And the problem was that I couldn't figure out, like, how to get the symbols to work, so I just kept putting this Hexapal in this thing, and then there was, like, a no battery indicator, and I'm like, that's not one of the symbols. And so I was stuck on this for a while, and then it turned out, I got the idea, I found some walkthrough video, and then I found that, like, if I had trace of wires, then it would show me a different symbol, and then I would get the feedback I needed to, like, solve the puzzle. But in this particular case, I knew how to, I knew the basic broad sketch of how to do it, but, like, the actual implementation gave me difficulties. And the knot thing, there were some pretty clever descriptions, but I often got them wrong. Given the options available, they didn't quite look like what I think they were supposed to look like, which was a bit challenging. But, like, so definitely the puzzles were not really, what I was looking for Act 2. But I mean, overall, I really enjoyed the game, taken as a whole. I mean, it was beautiful, and it was amazing, and it was ambitious, and it was really, compelling and interesting, and the characters were great, and I mean, certainly I think the characters didn't get as much of a chance to shine in Act Two. I mean, in that a lot of it was focused on, hey, let's, figure out the puzzles to wrap this up. But, there were still some good moments. But, I mean, all in all, it was an amazing game, and it's, there's been, some things written about, it's the best and the worst of adventure games, and I think that was Engadget or something, I don't remember, but... I mean, I think, for a Kickstarter, to some extent, it's the sort of nostalgia Kickstarters, it's tough to balance, modern sensibilities with what the audience wants. I mean, if you look at Tex Murphy, they made a new Tex Murphy game that, has the sort of warts of the old Tex Murphy game, and I suspect... the people who backed the Tex Murphy product, backed that on Kickstarter were, satisfied. But I think, to some extent, if they're trying to make a commercial product out of it that will sell in this day and age, I think that's a bit challenging. And I think, especially with, Broken Age, where they want the game to be successful, in terms of sales, not just in terms of Kickstarter, because they basically went over their Kickstarter budget significantly. They do have to balance the modern, sensibilities with, the retro people who love, adventure games. But I think, it's what's most exciting about the game is really, besides everything, and I love the game, but I mean, what's most exciting about the game existing and being out there is that, I am looking forward to what Double Fine does next, because, now they've developed their own tech for, creating adventure games, which is based off the MOA engine or something like that. They have experience with crowdfunding, and, potentially might use that as an avenue in the future. I don't know, but, it's definitely, I think it's a learning experience for Double Fine. It's a learning experience for us, as Kickstarter backers or as game players, and I think it's great to be able to participate in what will hopefully be a resurgence or an evolution of the, adventure game genre. So, I mean, Broken Age is just this amazing sort of milestone game that represents sort of the missing link between the past and the future of the adventure game genre, and I for one look forward to seeing where it goes. So anyway, go play Broken Age. Do it. I command you.